Okay. This is Anne for week 7 in the English 340, 540. We're on part 3, Public Lives, and this is just completely different from what we've been doing so far with the short stories and the poetry. And it is how women have affected a national voice. And they did this as men did in early times through modern essay. Um, and this is a quote from Montaigne, who describes a modern essay as counsels for the successful conduct of life and the management of men. So it wasn't a common thing that women were voicing publicly anything to do with the management of men. It just wasn't done. Mostly these modern essays are rigorous arguments, employing all the rhetorical devices of argument, very logically constructed, full of evidence and persuasive techniques. And so for women to move outside of the sphere of home and children into that public eye, that was a difficult thing to do. Most of us still, when we speak out, it's when we're personally affected or our family, our children are affected. So just to use that, get into that public eye, but it took a lot of courage. And someone brought up the first reading, Judith Sargent Murray. She took as her pseudonym Constantia, which in Latin means courage, constance, steadfastness. So when it's like she said, yes, I need the courage. I'm going to even take on this name to help me speak. So yeah, it's speaking in the woman's own voice instead of the narrative of fiction or poetry. And again, that's putting a lot more on the line. So I chose a couple of different essays. One is Murray's from 1790 on, from her larger work on the equality of the sexes. She was a patriot, feminist of Revolutionary War, writing at the same time that the framers of the Constitution were deciding whether women should be included as full citizens in the new nation. So she was putting in her just a very well-written argument about why, yes, we should be included with equal rights. They didn't pay any attention to her, of course, but we still, she still had an important voice. And someone brought up that she wrote this 1790, 2 years before Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women. And I was just astounded by that. Made me wonder if Mary Wollstonecraft read the Massachusetts Magazine. I kind of doubt it. Maybe I gotta go look it up. So I put in this little, it's just a brief outline that's right there in the forum, I believe, where you can find it. But I'm going to go over it just briefly. Mostly, she starts out with her premise as questioning whether nature is indeed partial to males in her distributions. And she lays out her argument in 4 different reasons for why not. The first is that it's not in imagination for 2 good reasons, and I'm going to let you just get this out of the essay. The second is not in reason for 2 good reasons, mostly having to do with the acquiring of knowledge, having access to education. The third is not in memory, and she cites that both genders have that in common, and not in judgment. And again, 2 good bits of evidence. Then her next point is on the, what did I do here? How do I get rid of that thing? Will it just go away maybe? How about the here? There, I'll Let's put it out of the way. That there are arguments against educating females, and that the most important one was that domestic duties would suffer. And then she gives, again, two solid arguments for why that's not true. And her third one is that our souls by nature are equal to yours. And it's when she gets to this really personal argument against her level of importance in the scale of humanity. You know, she says that if we are told we're going to heaven, then in God's eyes we are equal. Our souls are the same. And so she really waxes eloquent at the end. And another good rhetorical strategy is to save that best idea for the last. And she does it with a touch of humor. So, oh yeah, like this one. I kind of like this one. When she talks about our souls by nature are equal to yours, men argue that nature made them, men, the stronger sex. They have superior animal powers, so they must also be smarter. That's what she's saying. And then, so her first point in her argument is then, well, if that's so, logically, brute animals who are stronger than men should be smarter. Are you saying that this cow is smarter than you because he or she is definitely stronger? So, using the humor, trying to keep it lightened up, doesn't want a big conflict, wants to just persuade. Okay, then the second essay is Ida B. Wells Barnett's The Case Stated, about 100 years later. And again, it's a very personal essay. It seems appropriate that it's a woman arguing against lynching as an anti-lynching campaign. She was a journalist and an activist, and she printed anti-lynching rhetoric and got into trouble for it. Did you see that part where her magazine, her publishing house, got burned down, and her life was threatened? She had to flee to New York for her life.
That's the one that I wrote on in the forum.
Yeah.
That I read, I copied that article.
It again, Constantia. It took courage. It took steadfastness.
She said some good stuff at the end of that piece. That was, yeah, she was going to run by what she said.
Did you point out what she said? That what you're saying, what that says about white women? That was yours. Yeah.
Sure did.
That was good. So she cites lynching as a national crime that began after emancipation. That this didn't happen because why? Slaves were valuable. They're not going to kill valuable property. But after they were free, then there were three reasons that kept coming up, and they all had to do with fear. Fear of race riots, that blacks would somehow get together and just by sheer numbers take over. Fear of the ballot and Negro domination at the polls. And the third one she really focuses on because it's the most ridiculous, the fear of black men raping white women. And again, we're back to those rhetorical strategies. Like she's arguing against their strategies of reasoning, going to the emotional, you, Alejandra, got the ethos and pathos. This was the pathos. This was the emotion. That if we get in this idea that black men are raping white women, it will, it will fly. And then she gives, good evidence, good argument that there were no such charges under slavery, only after. She talks about rape charges, including any mesalliance with a white woman. I mean, just any conversation could have been called they could have used now.
I'm not quite sure that's what she was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And then she cites how many northern women, good Christian teaching people, came down to the South as teachers, thousands of them after emancipation, and that there was never any problem with them, that the chivalry of the white men did not seem to come into force there, and it was actually the protection by colored men that made this work. And then she ends with this fact that in 1894, in just 1 year, there were 132 executions according to due law processes in the United States. But in that same year, there were 197 persons lynched by mobs, and calls it the national. So again, it took her voice, I think, to talk about the unspeakable. And why did it take a woman's voice to do that? Maybe it's because because that's what women do, that we've got that connection with the personal, and when we go into the public, we dare to speak the unspeakable. And so when we get into what I call this just group of feminists here in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we've just got a little smattering of famous names, moving from the personal to the political. And these are all short. We'll just go talk about these in